Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. Today we're going to be talking about flowers, and we had an interview with Carrie and Carol from the Seed Keeper Company, and they have some tips on starting seeds. So there's a couple flowers you should probably be careful of if you're deciding what flowers to grow.
Are you going to give us the history of flowers?
So, long ago. So in Europe they have the monkshood flower. They say it has a beautiful purple flower, but eating anything on the monkshood can result in instant death for some people. And some people are so sensitive to the toxins in the leaves and the stems that just touching the plant can cause numbness.
Wow.
Isn't that weird? And in the U.S., the white snakeroot flower, it has small white flowers. They say they're very nice looking, but it's so toxic that you can die just from drinking the milk from a cow who ate the white snakeroot flower.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? So they called it, in the old days, like in the old West, they called it milk sickness.
Uh-huh.
And they think that Abe Lincoln's mom died from this.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
Weird, huh?
No, it's not weird. It's terrible.
It's just a flower, man.
Yeah.
And then the Belladonna, they call it deadly nightshade. Mm-hmm. Its foliage and berries are toxic. And so what the ancient Romans would do is they would take this, they would mash down the berries, and they would dip it in their arrows and create poisoned arrows.
Oh, nice.
And then doctors, in ancient Rome, they would use a small amount. They'd give this to a patient before surgery because it completely numbed them, their whole body. So they didn't want to use too much. And then assassins used belladonna.
But that was a fine
line.
Yeah.
Assassins used it to kill people. So the berries themselves were slightly sweet. So assassins would crush this and put it into wine, and they would use that as a way to kill the enemy.
Nice.
Wild, huh?
So are we only going to talk about flowers that can kill us, or are we going to talk about anything that applies to the home and garden?
I think we should probably talk about things that don't kill you. I would say the first thing you need to be thinking about when you're picking flowers, if you're looking at the packaging, you're looking at the difference between annuals and perennials. Anything that says annual is only going to last 1 year. Perennial flowers, they go dormant, so they look like they die back, or the whole plant itself might die back, but the root system is still alive, and then next spring it's going to develop the stems and flowers again. And some perennials are going to last a few years, but some actually last for decades.
Huh.
So if you're planning your landscaping beds and you've decided, like, this is definitely the color and the look I want, it's nice to pick a perennial flower.
Like in my grandparents' backyard, they had planted years ago tiger lilies.
Okay.
And man, they wanted to remove them.
Right.
After, 20 years of having them in the backyard.
Uh-huh.
Those suckers were so hard to dig all the way out. And we thought we got them all.
So careful what you choose.
Yeah, we thought we got them all. And then the next year, Grandpa's like, what is going on?
That's funny. So with perennials, they usually need less water and fertilizer than annuals. Annuals are nice because if you're a new homeowner or just getting started with gardening, you can pick them, you can try it out, see what the color and the shapes look like before you make a long-term decision.
So really the first step of planting is planning your design for what you want to do in your landscape?
And I would say it's smart. If you take just a few minutes and grab a piece of paper and kind of lay out what you're thinking about as far as where you're planting it, different colors, how deep you're going to plant, if you're going to have tall plants in back and smaller ones in front.
If you're going to plant it in the earth, or if you're going to have a landscaping bed, or if you want to put stuff in just pots.
And I think pots are interesting because we've had a couple of the landscaping companies come into our hardware store, and I would talk to them about some of the new ideas. They say that what's becoming popular is just using pots rather than planting your flowers in the soil, but you're grouping a bunch of pots, and so now you have the added texture and color of the pots and some height, and then the flowers coming out of that. And then different types of flowers where they can cascade down over the pots too.
Right, and the pots give you a lot of flexibility of, where you're going to place them.
Yeah, I think it's smart. For a new homeowner, if you're just kind of getting a feel for it, to have a little group of pots and kind of change where they are, I think it start to give you a feel for, what would look nice.
So since we started talking about pots, why don't we cover how to plant flowers in pots, some tips.
I would make sure your container has drainage holes.
But you do need to be careful with that because like some of the new plastic ones have the attached saucer to it, and you do have to take it apart first, and you have to punch out the drainage holes. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not doing what it's designed to do.
Some of them have a little area where you can see it's supposed to be punched out, but the machines don't punch them out, which is crazy.
And if you don't know, so you always have to, when you're
take a look at it
before you're planting anything in it, make sure the drainage holes are actually there to drain.
Absolutely. I would say the larger the pots, the better. And it's nice to have a variety, especially if you're doing landscaping. But the bigger you can get, it's going to hold more moisture. It's not going to evaporate as quickly. And it's also going to regulate the temperature around the roots. So you're going to have much healthier plants. The clay pots look great, but they actually lose moisture much faster than plastic.
So this is like the terracotta?
Right, yeah. And some of them have just a great look, expensive look, but they dry out very quickly. And then these new lightweight fiberglass ones are really nice, and they have foam pots. They're very easy to handle. They're easy to arrange. Some of them,
lightweight.
Yeah, and some are very inexpensive, so you can have them for a few years and then change them out, so you can really kind of change your decor.
And a wide variety of colors now, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that you should always be using potting soil, too, in these pots and not dirt. And then make sure that you're adding a little bit of gravel, maybe an inch worth of gravel or stone at the bottom, and that's going to just prevent any buildup of water which can rot the roots. And even though you have drainage holes, if you don't put some type of gravel or stone in there, sometimes they get clogged up.
Oh, really?
So it's nice to add just a little bit of gravel or stone in the bottom.
Watering flowers in pots is different than watering them in landscaping beds, right?
Right, because they dry out so much quicker. So if you have pots and flowers, you're going to have to look at them every couple of days to make sure you're...
Well, you should look at them every day to see if they need water or not. Yeah, but I mean, you should see if they need water or not.
You know, it's probably a good thing to look at the little, what do they call them? The little plastic things they put in.
Information sticks?
Yes, look at the information stick, and it's going to tell you the watering needs. And then if you're growing them from seed, it's going to have that information on there. But pots definitely need to be watered more often than your flowers in the landscaping area. And then we saw a couple of new items on the market at the last garden show we went to. One was the Plant Nanny.
I love the Plant Nanny.
And these are terracotta stakes that you can either put an old wine bottle into, or they have another one that you can put a water bottle screwed onto.
Like a plastic water bottle?
And it slowly releases water into your pots. So those are kind of cool.
Well, it's great because you don't have to think about it. You just have to go out there, look, see if the
is the bottle empty. Yeah, very easy. And then we saw the Honey Badger garden gloves.
I love this too.
So you get a pair of gloves, and one of the gloves has 3 of the fingers have hard plastic claws. So instead of having to use a shovel or any other little tool, you could just use this glove, and those claws will dig your holes so you can put your flowers into either your bed or your pots. And then the inside of those plastic claws are sculpted out so women with long fingernails, it won't damage their nails.
Nice.
So that's kind of a cool tool.
One thing I didn't know when we started doing our research for this, I found out that you shouldn't use garden soil in pots and containers.
It's weird. You would think it'd be about the same.
Right.
But potting soil is specifically, they almost say it's soilless because it's made up of peat moss, vermiculite, perlite. They use compost from forest material. So in fact, if you're looking at the packaging, they say that if you see something that says aged forest material or aged compost, that it's actually better, because there's more nutrients broken down into it. But it's lighter, it's fluffier, it allows the moisture to pass through this very easily, and also oxygen and nutrients, because regular soil in a small pot, it gets so compacted that the water will just kind of sit on the top and take forever to percolate down. So in pots, they really want you to use a true potting soil, and you're going to have a couple different choices. You can have something that's called all-purpose. You're going to have a potting soil with fertilizer, and a lot of these will have a slow release 3-month fertilizer in it. And then you have your specialty potting soil. So if you have cactus or violets or roses, if you have specific flowers that like acid-rich soil, then this is what you're looking for. But what's funny is most of this isn't soil. It's kind of soilless. But that's what you're looking for if you're putting flowers into pots. I was reading a couple articles by these flower experts for pots, and they said that you should get as big a pot as possible and keep a couple inches between the flowers in the same pot. And almost any annual can be planted together in the same pot. What they're recommending, this was called the designer's rule. So they say in a large pot, have tall plants in the back, kind of a bushy plant that's going to grow wide, and then have some type of trailing plant, they called it, so something that's going to kind of droop over the pot, and they say that makes the most visually impactful pots. They suggested Boston ferns and hibiscus if you want a formal look for your house. They say that several different types of flowers in the same color make a real playful look if you're looking for playful. And then if you want a sophisticated look, use nothing but green, white, or silver in your pots. Then I picked the 5 best flowers from all these different articles I read. The 5 that were in kind of a common theme with all these were tulips, the African daisy, the peacock orchid, Iceland poppies, and dahlias were considered the best flowers for your outdoor pots.
So let's change gears here and talk about planting flowers in landscaping areas.
Okay, I would say just start with a small amount to kind of get a feel for what looks good.
So when you're going to purchase your flowers, and this doesn't matter if you're planting them in pots or in your landscaping area, so you're going to buy a flat in general, so a tray of flowers. Right. Each one comes in cubes.
Right.
So it's like a 4-pack of individual flowers together.
Looks like something you get eggs in, like an egg carton.
Right. And so those cubes, then you have about 12 of them make up a flat.
Okay.
But no matter where you're purchasing them, and if it's a home center, a nursery, your grocery store, you can mix and match those flowers. Yeah. It doesn't have to be the whole tray.
Right,
it has to be the same kind.
Right, yeah, because a lot of homeowners didn't know that. They'd come into our hardware store and they'd think they just had to buy that.
Right.
But you can mix those around in most retail stores. They don't care if you mix and
so
match.
The individual cubes, you just, you could pull them out, and, pick what colors you want, which flowers you want. And so
very smart.
That's how you experiment.
Right. I would say create a wide landscape bed. So if you're just starting to work on your home and creating this bed for your flowers and landscape plants, most experts say make it 5 or 6 feet deep. That way you're able to put larger plants in the back and drop down to smaller plants. And then you want to plant them in groups. Most of the experts say that more is better. So a group of 5 or 7 flowers grouped together is going to look more professional than just a flower here and a flower there.
You should do a little research, though, to see what the plants are going to look like once they've bloomed.
Right, so the height and the width. And you can actually go to the Old Farmer's Almanac online, and they've got a really nice plant finder, and it tells you the height and the size and the color and how to care for them. Now, for fertilizer for your flowers, I looked up some of our trade magazines, the top-rated fertilizers, and Miracle Grow does a nice job. They have a shake and feed all-purpose plant food that comes in a shaker bottle, and these are good for your flower landscaping beds and also for pots. And this is a slow-release fertilizer, lasts about 3 months. Osmocote has one in a shaker bottle, very similar. It's called their Smart Release Plant Food. It was rated very high. We spoke to Lance from Bear Advanced, and his rose and flower care has a 6-week slow-release fertilizer. What's great about the rose and flower care from Bear Advanced is it also controls insects.
Right.
So it has that systemic chemical that goes up into it. So that's kind of cool. Espoma has a granular that you feed a small amount monthly. And what's nice about this is they're all natural plant food with microbes, and actually feeds the plants, and it puts these soil microbes into the soil to help the earth, the microbes in the earth to be healthier. And then Dr. Earth, so we saw them at one of the last shows we went to, and they have a product called Flower Girl Bud and Bloom Booster. And this is an all-organic fertilizer. It's a 6-week fertilizer, and they have 7 strains of microbes along with the fertilizer. So part of the fertilizer is Alaskan fish bone meal, feather meal, and alfalfa. So it's all natural, and then it's also good for the soil. It helps all the healthy microbes in the soil. And then preen we talked about. So if you have a landscape area with preen, they have their weed preventer and plant food. The thing with preen, so this is a 3-month fertilizer, fantastic in landscape beds. It feeds the flowers and it prevents weeds. The thing you need to remember about preen, though, is that it stops seeds from germinating. So you wouldn't want to put preen down first if you're planting flower seeds.
Right.
You'd want to have your seedlings already up or your flowers, in place, and then put preen down, and that's going to prevent weeds. And I saw a new product. I called the company a couple times, and they haven't gotten back to me yet, but it's called Chickadee doo-doo. So it's 100% chicken manure, and this is one of the organic fertilizers. And hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, if they get back to me, I'd like to learn a little bit more about their product. It was rated very high, but I've never heard of it before. Did you know that the average chicken lays about 250 to 300 eggs a year?
Why would I know that, and why would we be talking about that now?
And even more important, they produce 90 pounds of manure. Each chicken produces about 90 pounds of manure a year.
Nice.
Isn't that wild? I spoke to Kerrie and Carol from the Seed Keeper Company, and they have some tips for us.
Hi, Carol and Kerrie. How are you doing?
We are great. How are you?
Real good. Cindy and I were talking about flowers, and we're looking for some tips about seeds and maybe some tips for beginning gardeners.
Okay. Well, first, we're Kerrie and Carol from the Seed Keeper Company, and first we're going to talk about the tips, because that's really important when you're deciding, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, to understand the process. We like to start in peat pots or coir pots. Coir is the fiber from coconut. And what it is, it's a mesh container. It's very small, that they jam this fiber in and dry it out like a hockey puck. It looks like a little tiny hockey puck. And when you add water and rehydrate those, they're a really perfect growing environment. And the reason that we like them so much is that it reduces root shock. And for people who are starting out, they're going, what the heck's root shock? Well, whenever you plant something in the ground and you take it from the original setting into the ground, you risk disturbing the roots. But this helps minimize them, and we have found that they're very easy to use and very successful.
Yeah. We also really enjoy repurposing containers, like the chicken roasters you get from Costco or supermarkets. Those containers are the greatest.
Really?
Who
knew?
They're fantastic. They have little vents at the top, so you can close them to keep the moisture inside and then open them to release some. And they're taller, so you can put your plants can grow in a little bit. And they're ribbed at the bottom and black and strong, and you can start small quantities. Sometimes it's better to start small quantities of items, and that allows you to do that.
So they're like mini greenhouses
Okay.
for free. So one of the main things that we find that people have difficulty with after you've sown your seeds is the watering process. And this is where a lot of people say, I just can't start seeds. When you water seeds that you're starting, you need to water them. We call it watering from the bottom, which means that you bypass the planting medium. So you're not splashing water directly on top of those seeds. Because first of all, it can cause a mold issue. And secondly, you disturb the seed. When that water comes gushing over it, that's a tiny baby seed, and it just disturbs them. So we call that watering from the bottom. Now, after you've successfully started your seeds in the peat pot or whatever, or the coir pot, you need to move them up to a larger container so they can gain some speed, get bigger. And usually it takes, anywhere from, like 3 days to a month to germinate a seed. But once they get to the point where they have 2 to 4 true leaves, not the original leaf, that's called the cotyledon. Those are the tiny baby things that you first see. But after that, when they get 2 to 4 leaves, you need to transplant them to a larger container. And we like to use, and we reuse, like if you have a party and you're using those cups, those red cups that everybody has.
Sure.
What you need to do is take something hot and poke holes in the bottom of it. And we use, we've both found old, meat forks from at garage sales. And you just heat it and poke holes in the bottom because you're going to need drainage. So we transplant to those kinds of things so that they have an opportunity to get a little bit bigger. We like to pretend like we're a garden center, so we want them bigger and nicer for when we're ready to put them out.
Yeah, we must have thousands of those cups that we've saved after parties and then just poked holes in them.
And
That's funny.
The thing is, between us, we start probably about 1,000 plants from seed. We've been best friends. We live a couple houses apart, but in the beginning, we were just like the people that are listening. We started very slowly. We, made some mistakes. But the thing that's so wonderful about seeds is they're very forgiving. You can do it again and again and again. Carol, what's our favorite slogan?
If at first you don't succeed, seed again.
It's true. It's true. Don't give up because it doesn't work the first time. I upstairs am reseeding, seeds that I didn't get as, that might be older, that I didn't get as great. The germination is great. So it happens to us too. But if you just keep doing it, you get better at it and it gets easier.
And it's more fun.
Sure.
Something else to remember when you're starting seeds is to have proper lighting. Your windowsill on a south-facing side is a great place to start seeds. And seeds need about 14 to 16 hours of light. And if you're,
oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And if you're starting them on a windowsill, it's a good bet that you might want to have some supplemental lighting there as well, and maybe some heat. Make sure it's a warm area. They also like some warmth. Seed houses are nice for that because you can have your lights in there, and we go cheap, man. We go cheap on the lights. Do not spend a lot of money on lights. You can get inexpensive lights and shop lights, and they cost less than $15. So we like using those and making sure to put that light, if you're doing it in a seed house, to make sure your lighting is no more than 2 to 4 inches from that freshly sown seed. Mm-hmm. They really like a good bombardment of light and warmth and air.
Right. And when we talk about seed houses, we covet greenhouses ourselves. We do not have those,
no.
But we use these little inexpensive $29.99 seed houses that can be broken down. And what I'm going to talk about next, they're really a good thing to have. We use them indoors to start the seeds in. And then when it comes time, before you can put seedlings in the ground, they need to have a period called hardening off, which means that you're taking them outside for a period of time each day and bringing them back in. So when you have one of these seed houses, it gives you an opportunity to protect them from the elements because they need some wind and some things blowing through them to strengthen their stems and to help them be stronger before you put them in the ground. So we like these little cheapy seed houses for that because you can take them apart and move them very easily. You can use them with the covers, without, so it's just a shelf and they don't take up a lot of storage space. And
yeah,
they just work out really well. Now you've gone through the hardening off process where you've made sure that they're now acclimated and ready to be outdoors, and it's time to put them in the ground.
And how long does that take if we're bringing them in and out?
We see a week to 2 weeks.
Okay.
And you'll
right,
kind
great.
of see, you'll when they look like they're from the garden center. And sometimes, and wait, that is one thing I want to tell people. When you start seeds yourself, they don't always get as big and gargantuan as the plants that you buy at the garden center. But trust us, they catch up.
Oh boy, do they.
And they last longer. So in August, when you started your own seeds, ours are still fresh and vibrant and really, blooming and giving. And sometimes the ones that you maybe buy, elsewhere are kind of spent because they've been around a long time. We have a saying that a friend of ours told us that the way to know it's time to put them in the ground is that when you've had 5 days of 55 degrees at night.
Okay.
So that's just our kind of rule of thumb. You can test the ground temperature, the soil temperature, which we highly recommend. But if you don't have a soil thermometer, then you can just trust that if you've had 5 nights where the temperature has remained at 55 degrees or above, you'll be pretty safe to put them in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
The one big thing that we didn't talk about is the seed pack is your friend.
Oh, yes.
It has the keys to the kingdom. It is all of the important stuff. And a good seed company, it's really important to know where your seeds are coming from, will give you all the information that you need: planting depth, soil temperatures, days to germination, all of that stuff. They'll tell you what the plant's going to look like, how tall it's going to be, what kind of light it's going to need when it's outside. Because it's a tragedy if you start a shade plant and then you put it in the sun and it dies and you say, oh, look, I'm unsuccessful.
Right.
Well, if you follow the seed pack, you'll be safe. And then as you get more, become sure of yourself, then you can kind of play with some of those things a little bit.
Something else to be concerned about before you even get started is to know what your zone is. And that is that's the most important thing. That'll lead you to the right seeds that you're going to be buying. And so you can go, there's a USDA hardiness zone map online. It's interactive, and you just punch in your zip code, and it is regionally perfect down to every 5 degrees. It's brand new. It came out, I think, just a couple years ago after they revamped the whole thing.
Wonderful. And where would I find that again?
On USDA.gov.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Excellent. So for a new homeowner, what are the easiest seeds to start, would you suggest?
Well, we think all seeds are easy to start. Some take a little more effort and require some different things. But we like to split them into 2 categories. The ones that you start inside because they require a longer germination time, they need some time to get going. And the ones that you direct sow, which means you plant them directly into the ground versus starting them inside. So I'm going to start out with talking about the easy seeds to start indoors. Now, when we first got going, we did a lot of impatient seeds. Right now, there's a problem with impatient seeds because of a downy mildew that has affected the crops. So we had to switch gears from those. And little did we know that when we started with impatient seeds, that they are probably one of the more difficult seeds to start. But what you don't know won't hurt you, right? So we were able to do that. So now we start a lot of begonia seeds, and they're very easy. They're tiny seeds, but if you use some things that if you check out, we'll talk about our website a little bit later, but we have some ideas and we have some products that help make it easier to start them. But there are lots of different kinds of begonia seeds, not just the little compact ones that we all see that have the pink and white and red flowers, but there are Bossa Nova begonias and Santa Cruz begonias that have these beautiful hanging, drippy blooms that are really not difficult to start. Snapdragons, those are an old-fashioned flower, but they are so beautiful, and they fill in, and they give you some nice height at the back of the garden. Dianthus are great, and there are annual Dianthus and perennial Dianthus, and they come back very easily, and they're a nice little tight, compact plant with a really pretty bloom and lots of different colors. Salvia Lighthouse is another one that is very easy to start. It's a tall, stocky plant that gives some drama to a garden, but very, very easy. But those all require being started inside. They need some time, to take hold and go through that whole process that we talked about with, hardening off and all of that.
Great. And, I'm going to let you know about some seeds that you might want to direct sow. And one of my favorites last year was zinnia. Honestly, I had a whole pack. I just made a little row, and I just spread those seeds in there and covered them lightly. And I had just tons of nice, tall-growing zinnias. They're beautiful to cut at the end of the year. They make wonderful arrangements in vases.
Interesting. Yeah, never thought of that.
Yeah, and Nasturtiums are a beautiful flower, and they have multiple purposes. They attract bugs that might otherwise harm vegetable plants if you're growing those. They are also edible. The flowers are edible, and they're delicious.
Really?
For real. I kid you not.
That's funny.
Marigolds are a beautiful, attractive flower to start outside. Sunflowers, of course, are fun to grow, eat, and for all sorts of reasons. And one thing I would say, if you're starting sunflowers and some of these other kind of stemmy plants, we recommend you take like a water bottle or a Gatorade bottle or some type of clear plastic bottle and open up the bottom of it so that it's open at both ends and slip that over your new seedling outside. It'll protect it from any critters that are going to come along and want to eat it, because they will. So
funny.
That's a real easy way, because once those plants get up about 4 or 5 inches, their stem becomes a little more woody, and they're not as attractive to those low eaters. And
interesting.
Yeah, so we found that's a really easy way to help our plants grow. We love growing vines from seed, like cardinal climbers. They attract hummingbirds and pollinators, and they're just beautiful to have. They're little bright red flowers, or cypress vines, and the foliage on them is just unique and beautiful. They're an easy start, great way to cover a fence or anything else. They're a nice growing vine. Also, moonflowers. Kerrie tried to start some moonflowers from seed inside, and it actually worked out a lot better for her to start them outside. And those are an amazing, big, beautiful, night-blooming flower. So those are just some of the really nice flowers you can start outside, and maybe consider why you're growing them, that you might want to have some cut flowers at the end of the year. Some grasses are simple to grow outside. You can sow them, and they make nice little arrangements too.
And, I neglected to mention a plant. This is an old-fashioned plant. This one has to be started inside. But as Carol was alluding to, we like plants that have, like, multiple purpose. Either you can get a beautiful cut flower from it, or it has some benefit to some other part of your garden. And one of these old-fashioned plants is called an Algeratum. It's a really beautiful periwinkle little bloom. It's a tight plant. But one of the benefits of it is that it helps repel mosquitoes. So if you plant them in a border, there are other plants like that. Everybody knows the citronella, but there are other plants that do also help repel mosquitoes. So I start quite a few Algeratum, and it makes a really pretty border in and out of the garden, but it also helps repel mosquitoes. Nice side thing.
They're really beautiful, too. They're nice color.
The old-fashioned plants are making a comeback. They really are. Everybody talks about heirloom plants. plants. And a lot of these are, they're really heirloom snapdragons. A lot of these plants have been around forever. They're seeing a resurgence because they also attract pollinators, which is something that is beneficial for all of us.
Well, you guys have a couple items that you sell. You have you have a seed organizer.
Yes, we do. We make actually 3 different types of seed keepers, and they're ways to store and organize your plant seeds. They hold over 100 seed packs, and they have A to Z dividers and monthly dividers in a couple of them. And everything's held in place with a hook and loop Velcro system, so you can add to your seed collection, and they're not going to flop over. But there's more. We also include a whole handy array of seed starting and growing tools like seed tweezers and seed sorting dishes, little 6-inch rulers, seed envelopes, just a whole array of unique tools that have helped us be successful in the garden.
And they do make seed starting a lot easier, I'm telling you. I mean, it's just to be organized and have the tools that you need all in one location is very helpful.
It really is.
So for a beginner, this would probably be fantastic.
Right.
Easy way to start.
Oh, most definitely.
And fabulous to use with children.
Oh, definitely.
Kerrie and Carol, if I wanted to find out more about your company, where would I go?
Well, you can find us on Facebook. We share everything. We do, and this is the time when we're really heavy into sharing tips and showing you the things that we're starting, and we show the good, the bad, and the ugly. We think if people see that if we've been unsuccessful and found a way to overcome it, then that's beneficial. So you can find us on Facebook at the Seed Keeper Company.
Excellent.
We're very active on Twitter also at Seed Keeper Co.
Okay.
And of course, you can find our website at seedkeepercompany.com.
All right, well, great. Well, I appreciate your time.
Great.
Well, we appreciate it.
Happy seed starting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
See
Thank
you
you.
in the garden.
All right. Thank you.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, they're very knowledgeable. They had mentioned coir pots, and that's spelled C-O-I-R.
Well, I was getting worried you hadn't spelled it all in this episode up until now.
This would have gone on and on until I found something to spell. Another tip I thought was really good is they said make sure you're looking for the plants that are either in sun or shade.
So you have anything else, Dad?
I've got some plants that repel mosquitoes.
Oh, well, that's good.
So anybody who stayed along into the episode this long
will get rewarded.
So you can plant lavender, lemongrass. So lemongrass is where they get the citronella oil from.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So these get about 5 feet tall.
Wow.
So they're huge. And you can put these in pots and then put them, stage them on your patio.
Right.
And it'll actually repel mosquitoes. Lemon, thyme, mint, rosemary, marigolds, feverfew, and then chrysanthemums. And chrysanthemums is where you get the pyrethrum chemical, and that's, the insecticide.
So you just have to be careful with cats, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Pyrethrum is deadly to cats. And then if all else fails, just buy a big Venus flytrap.
Let's wrap this up.
So you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
If you'd like to check out our home improvement videos, you can see them at our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe there as well.
If you'd like to email us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week. Different